The day I was scheduled to try on wedding dresses with my boyfriend of 7 years, I arrived at the bridal shop full of joy. But I unexpectedly overheard a conversation between my boyfriend and his friend. "You went to the courthouse and got legally married with Catherine yesterday, and today you're bringing Sarah here to try on wedding dresses? Aren't you afraid Sarah will find out and make a scene?" He looked helpless, his voice hoarse. His brother died in a car accident, and Catherine is pregnant with his child. If I don't step up and marry her out of responsibility, how will they live as an orphan and widow? I'll spend my whole life making it up to Sally. Keep your mouth shut, she absolutely cannot know about this. My heart turned to stone. I immediately booked an abortion procedure at the hospital. Since he couldn't give me and the baby a complete family, I decided it was better not to have it. Their conversation was like the biting cold of winter, instantly extinguishing all the joy I'd felt after getting the pregnancy test results. I'd woken up early that morning and gone straight to the hospital to get the report. I'd planned to come to the bridal shop and tell him the good news myself, but I didn't expect him to hit me with such a devastating blow first. If he had already gotten legally married to someone else, why was he still planning to marry me? Before I could figure out the answer, the bridal shop designer came over. "Miss Sarah, Mr. Miller's specially custom designed wedding dress for you is here. You can try it on now." Hearing that, I was momentarily stunned. David Miller cared more about this wedding than anyone. The wedding rings and the wedding dress were all personally designed and supervised by him based on my preferences. The engraving on the wedding ring even read, "Two hearts, undoubted love." I felt bad that he had to handle wedding details on top of work, so I suggested hiring a designer to manage everything. But he shook his head and refused, saying, "Designing it myself shows how much it means. I want you to look at these things in the future and think of me." Everyone who knew about it at the time praised him, saying he would definitely be an excellent husband and that I was lucky to have met him. But who knew his love for me had become so ironic? I composed myself and walked towards the fitting room where the wedding dress was kept, only to see a familiar figure. Catherine heard the staff member directing me and turned to look at me with a smile. "Sally, you're finally here. Come see how beautiful your wedding dress is." She spoke with a natural expression, looking every bit like a caring older sister. When David Miller's brother was still alive, we had met for dinner a few times, and I'd had quite a bit of contact with Catherine. In the past, thinking of her as my future sister-in-law, I would share good things with her to ensure a good relationship between us. If I hadn't just overheard David Miller and his friend's conversation, I never would have imagined she would become an insurmountable obstacle between David Miller and me. Remembering what they had just said, I subconsciously glanced at her still flat stomach, a wave of bitterness washing over me. No matter what happened, she had a harbor to rely on. My baby and I, however, had nowhere. My expression dimmed as I looked at the exquisite wedding dress. "It's really beautiful. Do you want to try it on?" As I finished speaking, an incredulous voice rang out. "Sally, what are you talking about? This is your wedding dress. How can you let someone else try it on?" David Miller walked over, a hint of anger in his tone, his eyes full of disapproval. My expression didn't change, I was perfectly calm. "What's the big deal? I heard Catherine didn't wear a wedding dress when she and your brother got married. Trying it on now can fulfill that past regret. Their marriage was rushed, they just went to the courthouse. And didn't have a wedding ceremony. Now, David Miller had given her the title of wife. So I would help her fulfill the regret of not having a wedding." Catherine was visibly moved by my words. After all, there's no girl who hasn't dreamed of being a beautiful bride. Perhaps David Miller also thought my words made sense, his expression softened slightly, and he didn't say anything more. Seeing his mood lighten, Catherine's eyes showed a flicker of hesitation, and she tentatively asked, "Can I really try it on?" I nodded and had a staff member help her change into the wedding dress. David Miller had already put on his groom's suit. Seeing Catherine go to change into the wedding dress, he considered changing out of his suit. But I reached out and stopped him. "Catherine is pregnant. Doing anything is inconvenient for her. If you leave, what if something happens to her?" Hearing this, he gave up the idea and stood quietly beside me, waiting. A hint of worry, however, surfaced in his eyes. Catching the change in his emotions, I let a mocking smile play on my lips. Before long, Catherine came out led by a staff member. She wasn't showing yet, and her figure was similar to mine. The wedding dress fit her perfectly. Catherine's face showed undeniable joy, and she asked, feigning shyness, "Dave, do I look good in this?" Hearing her words, David Miller, whose gaze had been fixed on her, snapped back to attention and softly hummed in response. The next second, another staff member walked over. Seeing them, she couldn't help but exclaim, "The wedding dress looks truly beautiful on you. You two are the most perfect bride and groom I've ever seen." When she said this, everyone present's expression changed. Catherine looked nervously at David Miller, then forced a smile and explained, "No, you misunderstood." Before she could finish, I started clapping, sincerely exclaiming, "You're right, they look great together. Catherine, this wedding dress is an absolute perfect fit for you. It's so beautiful, why shouldn't everyone appreciate it?" As I finished speaking, David Miller looked at me with a hint of disbelief in his eyes. After all, I had always been very protective of my things, especially a wedding dress with such special meaning. And now, not only had I given her permission to try it on, but I was also praising her without reservation. "Sally, you..." I blinked at him. Okay, I was just saying." I suddenly remembered I have some work I haven't finished at the office and need to rush back. "I won't keep you." Saying this, I walked straight towards the bridal shop entrance. Seeing this, David Miller wanted to follow, but Catherine held him back. As I reached the entrance and looked back inside, I saw David Miller supporting her as they walked towards the fitting room. He supported her gently, his gaze fixed solely on her. It was as if with her presence, no one else could exist in his eyes. At that moment, I felt a little lost. Was he marrying her purely out of the responsibility he spoke of? Or did he genuinely like her? I wouldn't get an answer, and I didn't want to humiliate myself further. The next day, I went to the hospital as scheduled for the pre-abortion checkup. When the doctor asked about the baby's father, I said, "He's busy with work and doesn't have time to come with me." When I woke up that morning, I had thought about telling him. But I called him several times, and he didn't pick up once. After the procedure was done, the color drained from my face, and I weakly leaned against the wall, walking towards the hospital exit. As I reached the hospital lobby, I saw David Miller accompanying Catherine for her prenatal checkup. Both of them froze when they saw me. Surprise flashed in David Miller's eyes, and he asked, confused, "Are you feeling unwell? Why are you at the hospital alone?" Before I could speak, Catherine spoke up first. "Sally, don't think you can neglect your health just because you're young. No matter how busy you are with work, take care of yourself. Don't make Dave worry about you." Her tone was heartfelt, but subtly carried a hint of distance. I pursed my lips and hummed in response. "I finished my checkup and can leave after picking up my medication. You too should go do your prenatal checkup." Concern filled David Miller's eyes. He was about to walk towards me when Catherine pulled him back. "Dave, it's almost our turn. Let's go." Saying this, she rubbed her abdomen as if in discomfort. "Lately, I don't know if I've been worrying too much, but my stomach feels a little uncomfortable. I hope it doesn't affect the baby." She emphasized the word baby, and the worry in David Miller's eyes dissipated. He looked apologetic and said, "Sally, you go home first. I'll come find you after I finish the checkup with Catherine." Before his brother passed away, he had always respectfully called Catherine sister-in-law. Now he called her so affectionately. Looking at the three of them together, I clearly realized that I had become the true outsider in their lives. The man who once said he would love me forever no longer had me in his heart. Remembering how he used to prioritize me above everything else, no matter what happened, my eyes welled up with bitterness, and I choked out, "Okay, you go ahead." On the way home, I watched the familiar scenery flash by outside the car window, memories of our time together flooding my mind. David Miller and I met in high school. He was my desk mate then. He was a quiet bookworm, while I was lively and active. My parents were busy with work and worried I wouldn't take care of myself, so they made me live in the dorms. I hated the cafeteria breakfast, so I always pestered him to bring me breakfast from outside. He was helpless but always indulged me. And this went on for 3 years. After graduating high school, we coincidentally chose the same university. As old classmates had known each other for 3 years, I couldn't help but seek him out for comfort and support in the unfamiliar environment. I was used to turning to him whenever something happened, and he never tired of helping me solve problems. Many times, my mom told me I shouldn't bother others like that. I didn't take it seriously and relayed what she said to David Miller. At that time, he put down his pen and said nonchalantly, "Do you really think I'm some kind of pushover? Sarah, if I didn't like you, I wouldn't bother with you." I had known about his crush on me long before, so I shamelessly soaked up all the good things he did for me. After we started dating, his love for me was even more obvious. As long as he was there, I could always be carefree. My mom knew how much he did for me and always teased me, saying the hardest thing I'd ever had to deal with was just going to work. But now I think she was wrong. The hardest thing I've ever had to deal with isn't work. It's that the person I loved married someone else. And I was the last to know. Remembering the past, I cried until my eyes were red. The driver saw this and handed me a tissue, comforting me, "Young lady, there's no hurdle in this world you can't overcome. Always look forward, good luck is waiting for you." I took the tissue and thanked him, choked up. After getting out of the car and paying, I was about to chat with a friend when I casually opened my social media feed. That's when I saw Catherine's new post from 5 minutes ago. She posted an ultrasound image and a photo of David Miller looking down at a report, with the caption, "Baby, hurry and come out. Mommy and Daddy can't wait to see you." Scrolling down, the first comment was from David Miller's mother. She said, "Grandma can't wait either. I can't wait to see my grandson." The comment section was filled with comments solely from the Millers. From their comments, it seemed they all knew about David Miller marrying Catherine. Remembering the other day when I went to the Millers. How nice the Millers had been to me. I felt utterly ridiculous. I couldn't help but wonder if they were secretly laughing at me when I talked about the wedding at their house. My own boyfriend had gotten legally married to someone else, and I was still full of anticipation for a fake wedding. I raised my hand to wipe away the tears from my eyes and went home. Before David Miller and I set a wedding date, the Millers had already given me the wedding jewelry and the betrothal gift. When I got home, I packed everything they had given me into cardboard boxes. On the day of the planned wedding, I would return everything they had given me. From then on, I would have nothing more to do with the Millers. After the abortion procedure, I was very weak, so I took a few days off from work to rest at home. One day, as I was half asleep, I vaguely sensed someone approaching. When I opened my eyes, I saw a familiar face. David Miller touched my cold hands, looking anxious. "Sally, are you feeling unwell? Should I take you to the hospital for a checkup?" In the past, I would have playfully hugged him and sought warmth from him. But now, I pulled my hand away from his, hid it under the covers, and mumbled, "It's just a common cold. No need to go to the hospital." David Miller didn't notice my resistance and shook his head helplessly. "Why didn't you tell me you had a cold? We're getting married. Why be so polite with me?" Hearing the word married, my groggy mind gradually cleared. Married? Yes, he was indeed married. I glanced at the cardboard boxes in the corner and said softly, "You're right, we're getting married. Why don't you take your things back today?" We didn't live together, but he occasionally stayed over, so he had quite a few personal items at my place. I had packed them all up the day I came back from the hospital. David Miller didn't sense anything wrong and said with a smile, "Okay, we'll be moving to our new place after the wedding anyway." I didn't respond to that. That evening, David Miller made me a warm bowl of chicken noodle soup before taking his things and preparing to leave. Looking at his retreating back, I said softly, "Don't come here anymore for a while. I have a cold and don't want to infect you. Just stay home and get ready to be the handsomest groom." He felt helpless hearing this but listened to me anyway. For the next few days, he didn't come over but still sent me messages from time to time, as usual. And I always replied perfunctorily. Time flew by, and soon it was the wedding day. I didn't put on the wedding dress David Miller had personally designed and head towards the future I had once envisioned. Instead, I bought a train ticket to Sunstone Valley for a trip. Just before getting on the train, someone from the hotel called to ask when I would arrive. I immediately sent Catherine's photo to her and told her, "This is the real bride." I was just helping her with the rehearsal before. Find her and help her get dressed and do her makeup. After saying that, I blocked and deleted all of David Miller's contact information. Then I took out my SIM card and put it in my bag. After doing all this, I felt a rare sense of relief. David Miller, I hope you have a memorable day. Meanwhile, David Miller had been looking forward to this day for a long time and was radiating happiness upon arriving at the hotel. Mrs. Miller looked helpless but reminded him, "Take it easy later, don't overdo things. Catherine is sensitive right now, so don't hurt her feelings." Mentioning Catherine, David Miller's smile faded slightly. "I know, Mom. Be good to Sally later and don't let her suspect anything." Mrs. Miller sighed and nodded in agreement. Soon, the wedding ceremony began. David Miller didn't know why, but a bad feeling washed over him. He scanned the surroundings but didn't see my parents. He didn't know that on the day I prepped to run away, I had told my parents everything. Now, seeing no sign of them, he felt a strange sense of panic. Just as he was about to ask if anyone had seen them, the MC announced the start of the ceremony. He could only wait patiently. But when he saw Catherine walking towards him in a wedding dress, the smile on his face completely froze. He turned pale and weak, his lips trembling as he said, "Why is it you? Where's Sally?" Before Catherine could say anything, a man wearing a delivery uniform walked in holding a gift box. He shouted loudly, "Who is Mr. David Miller? I have a wedding gift here from Miss Sarah. Please sign for it." As he said this, the whole place erupted in murmuring. Everyone knew the two main people in this wedding were David Miller and Sarah. And now I wasn't there, but I had sent a wedding gift. Hearing him, David Miller's eyes were vacant, his whole being seemed to have been drained of all spirit. He staggered towards the delivery person. He didn't sign immediately but opened the cardboard box first. The moment he opened it, his eyes immediately fell on the wedding jewelry and a bank card containing the betrothal gift. Seeing what was inside, helplessness and despair gradually consumed him. He tried to force a smile, but it was uglier than crying. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he said through sobs, "She called off the wedding. Sally doesn't want me anymore. Why doesn't she want me?" His hands holding the gift box trembled as he asked, over and over. But no one in the room could give him an answer. Seeing that something was wrong, Mrs. Miller hurried over. Just as she was about to say something, she heard his words, and saw the things in the cardboard box. Anger erupted instantly, and she snapped, "Is this the kind of girlfriend you found? Running away on her wedding day and making you look ridiculous in front of everyone." As she spoke, her gaze shifted towards Catherine nearby, and her expression softened. But this is for the best. You and Catherine can go ahead and have the wedding. You're already legally married anyway, you're true husband and wife." "Mom." Before she could finish, David Miller, his eyes red, angrily interrupted her. He gritted his teeth and said, "I only love Sally." "So what? You love her, so you'll just abandon Catherine? Don't you forget she's carrying your brother's only child." No matter how unwilling he was, Mrs. Miller made him endure and complete the wedding ceremony. After reaching my destination and washing up, I was about to find a well-rated restaurant nearby. Unexpectedly, I accidentally clicked into my social media feed. Instantly, I saw Catherine's new post from 2 minutes ago. She posted 2 pictures, one of the new place decorated with wedding signs, and another of her newly changed contact name for David Miller. She had changed it from his name to the baby's father. The caption read, "It's a shame the baby wasn't born yet and couldn't witness mommy and daddy's happiest day. But from now on, we'll be happy together forever. Please take care of us from now on, the baby's father." Seeing this post, my expression darkened. Just as I was about to exit, I saw David Miller's comment. It was just a simple "okay." This could be considered a silent acceptance of her new name for him. The baby's father? Looking at that name, I found it increasingly ridiculous. At that moment, I suddenly wanted to know. If he knew we had once had a child, what kind of expression would he have? I clicked on his profile picture, wanting to unblock him. But after thinking about it carefully, I decided against it. If I was going to let go, I had to let go completely. I happily traveled around Sunstone Valley for a week before unhurriedly buying a return ticket. But when I got home, as I reached the door, I happened to run into my neighbor Lisa, who was about to leave. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw me, and she smiled. You. Finally back. Your boyfriend has been going crazy looking for you lately, coming by the door every day. He just left. You can still catch him if you hurry. I shrugged nonchalantly. We've broken up. I don't have a boyfriend. If you see him again, could you please call security for me? Thanks. After chatting with her for a bit, I opened the door and went inside. I had changed the door lock when I left, which was why David Miller couldn't get in. I didn't dwell on what Lisa had said and just washed up and rested as usual. The next day, feeling refreshed, I went to the office. Seeing me, my coworker Amy, who I was close with, immediately came over. She looked around and whispered, "Didn't you take time off to get married recently? Why did your husband come to the office looking for you? He also told me to contact him if I saw you. Are you guys having problems?" In the past few days I was away, David Miller had been coming to the office looking for me from time to time. When he couldn't find me at the office, he would wait outside my house after work. What she said didn't stir any ripple in my heart. I said calmly, I was on annual leave, not wedding leave. Also, I've broken up with him. From now on, I have nothing to do with him. What? You two were so in love before, always together. How did you break up so suddenly? Amy was just a coworker, there was no need to share so many personal details. I replied vaguely, we weren't compatible. Perhaps sensing I didn't want to continue the topic, she didn't ask any more questions. When it was time to leave work, I had just finished packing and walked out of the office when I saw David Miller's car parked by the road. I ignored it and walked in the opposite direction. But I heard a familiar voice calling out behind me. Sally! David Miller called out anxiously, opened his car door, and ran after me. Seeing my face, his eyebrows showed the joy of finding something lost. Sally, you're finally back. I missed you so much. I didn't look directly at him but glanced behind him. That's when I saw Catherine sitting in the passenger seat of his car, smiling at me. But if you looked closely, you could see a hint of provocation in that smile. Now everyone knew they were married, so were they no longer pretending? Sure enough, before I could speak, she got out of the car. Looking concerned, she said, Sally, where have you been these past few days? Dave and I were so worried about you, especially Dave. He's been so worried about you that he hasn't been able to eat. Look how thin he is, it's heartbreaking to see. It sounded like she was worried about me, but she was actually subtly provoking me. He's your husband. Worrying about him is your business, what does it have to do with me? I said calmly, and David Miller's face turned pale. His fingers trembled, as if carrying endless heartache. Sally, you were the only one I ever wanted to marry. Hearing that, I felt utterly disgusted. I looked at him with impatience. David Miller, are you really going to treat me like an idiot if I don't spell things out for you? You're already legally married to her, and you still plan to have a wedding with me. What did you take me for? He was married. Our relationship wouldn't be recognized by law. I would be the other woman everyone looked down on. And I hated nothing more than being the third party who broke up others' relationships. No, Sally, it's just a marriage in name only, there's no love between us. David Miller tried desperately to explain but didn't see Catherine's expression change. Suddenly, Catherine clutched her stomach with a pained expression and cried out, Dave, I suddenly feel a lot of pain in my stomach. Can you take me to the hospital? David Miller froze, hesitation flashing in his eyes. I gave a mocking smile. Hurry and take your wife to the hospital. Don't hurt your son. After saying that, without waiting for his response, I turned and walked to the roadside, hailing a cab and leaving. I thought that after making things clear, I wouldn't see the Millers again. But unexpectedly, when I got home from work the next day, as I stepped out of the elevator, I saw Mrs. Miller waiting at my door. The moment she saw me, she knelt down before me without waiting for me to speak and cried out, "Please, I beg you, let my son go. He has a wife and child now, they can't live without him." It was peak time for people getting off work, and my neighbor Lisa was also getting home around this time. She cried out for a couple of seconds, and people started coming out of the elevator one after another. Seeing the scene before them, they couldn't help but stop and watch. Listening to the old lady, it sounds like this woman is the other woman ruining her son and daughter-in-law's relationship. Look how she's always dressed flashy. You can tell she's not a good woman. I didn't expect her to actually be a homewrecker. It's really disruptive. How can someone like this live here? Hearing the pointing and whispering around me, anger surged in my heart, and I couldn't help but say, "What you're saying is exactly what I want to say. I beg you, please let your son leave me alone. Don't ever come looking for me again." I had told him before that I wasn't indispensable to him. If he ever disappointed me, I would leave without hesitation. Just like now, I had made up my mind to break up with him, and I would definitely not look back. After I finished speaking, I saw a figure rushing out of the fire escape. David Miller was out of breath, his face flushed from running. His eyes were filled with disappointment. He gasped, speaking haltingly, "Sally, was what you just said the truth?" "Yes." I looked directly into his eyes and said each word clearly. "I can't afford to get involved with the Millers. Please go back where you came from. I never want to see you again." "Fine. Then you remember why. Oh, you said today. Don't you dare pester my son again." Mrs. Miller stood up abruptly, her voice haughty. "And I won't allow you to cause trouble for my daughter-in-law, or don't blame this old woman for being nasty to you." "Mom, stop talking." David Miller's voice was filled with anger as he sharply interrupted her. Just then, my good neighbor Lisa pushed through the crowd. She shouted loudly, "Sarah didn't pester your son at all. It was your son who kept pestering her. These past few days she was gone, your son was here every day like a stalker, waiting by her door. He kept asking me about her but never told me they had broken up. I have surveillance video on my door. If you don't believe me, I can show it to you." With her testimony, the people who had been looking at me with biased eyes showed a flicker of guilt. Even the usually smooth-talking Mrs. Miller was speechless. Exposed, David Miller wasn't angry but calmly admitted it. "Yes, she didn't pester me. I was the one who kept pestering her." His eyes looked at me with overwhelming helplessness and regret. Mrs. Miller's face turned red with anger, she scoffed and left as if escaping. David Miller wanted to talk to me, but I spoke before he could. "What I just said was the truth. I never want to see you again. Please stop coming to find me." Saying this, ignoring his pleas, I opened my door and walked inside. After washing up and getting ready to finish some unfinished work, I received several notifications from shopping apps. Out of curiosity, I clicked on them. I saw that a few minutes ago, another linked shopping account tied to mine had bought a lot of baby items. There were even a few pieces of maternity lingerie. That's when I remembered I had linked accounts with David Miller a long time ago. We both knew what the other person bought on the app. Seeing these disgusting orders, and remembering David Miller's attempt to reconcile, a hint of mockery flashed in my eyes. I went into T. He settings and forcibly canceled the linked account. I checked again to make sure there was nothing left on my phone related to David Miller. The weekend arrived quickly. Lisa, worried I might dwell on things at home, invited me to go shopping. At the mall, she grandly waved her hand. "What iced latte or coffee do you want? Pick anything you like, it's on me today." We often shared good things with each other, and buying each other drinks was commonplace. So I didn't stand on ceremony and ordered an iced latte as she suggested. While we were waiting for our drinks, a familiar figure caught my eye. Looking closely, the woman not far away had a similar build to Catherine. However, that woman was holding hands with a strange man. Before I could get a clear look at her face, they walked into the hotel across the street. What are you looking at? Nothing. Thinking that it didn't matter to me who she was with, I didn't dwell on it. It wasn't until I was getting ready for bed that a sudden, unfamiliar phone call broke through my drowsiness. As soon as I answered, I heard a loud, wailing cry from the other end. Sarah, you heartless woman. You just watched someone harm my daughter-in-law and my grandson. Give me back my grandson's life. Hearing these nonsensical words, I was utterly confused. Before I could ask, the wailing faded, replaced by David Miller's hoarse voice. He said Catherine had been bullied and had been rushed to the hospital bleeding heavily. And when she was taken into surgery, she kept calling my name. These absurd words made me laugh in exasperation. Mrs. Miller insisted I go to the hospital. I didn't want to go initially. But remembering Mrs. Miller's persistent nature, I had no choice but to get dressed and rush there. When I arrived at the hospital, Catherine was just being wheeled out of the operating room. The moment she saw me, her eyes filled with tears, and she trembled helplessly. Mrs. Miller's eyes were red with rage. And she lunged towards me, cursing, trying to hit me. But David Miller silently turned and shielded me. She killed your only child, and you're still protecting her? Have you forgotten how good your brother was to you? Mom, it's not her fault. No, it is her. She hates that I took Dave, so she wanted to harm me and the baby. Mom, you have to stand up for me. Hearing that, I couldn't help but laugh again, but I also understood that the figure I saw that afternoon was her. My expression didn't change, and I asked calmly, "Are you sure what happened to you has something to do with me? If you're absolutely sure, I'll call the police right now." At the mention of calling the police, Catherine's face changed repeatedly, and she stammered, "You were almost one of the Millers. For Dave's sake, there's no need to make a big deal out of this." I sneered, "No, I think it's absolutely necessary to call the police. After all, if I don't, who will clear my name?" Saying this, I took out my phone and dialed the police in front of them. Catherine looked panicked, struggling to snatch my phone. But I calmly said, "This afternoon I saw you walk into a hotel with a man. If I call the police now, I can give a statement for you. I'm sure the police will quickly investigate and find out the truth." No, don't call the police. Ignoring her desperate cries, I insisted on dialing the police. Catherine's face turned ashen after hearing what I said. She had thought that I hadn't seen her that afternoon and that she could successfully shift the blame onto me, so no one would verify whether what she said was true or false. But she hadn't expected that while she saw me that afternoon, I had also seen her. After taking care of this, I was about to leave. The doctor who had performed my abortion procedure happened to come out of the operating room. Seeing me, her eyes showed surprise, and she asked, "You just had surgery. Why haven't you come for a follow-up check up these past few days?" "Surgery? What surgery?" The doctor looked confused. "The abortion procedure. She went home the day after the surgery. I don't know how her recovery is going." Saying this, she looked at me. "Since you're here, you might as well get a checkup. Girls need to take care of themselves." As she said this, David Miller and Mrs. Miller's faces turned pale. David Miller's eyes were filled with disbelief, and he asked, trembling, "Our baby is gone?" I didn't answer him and turned to leave with the doctor. I hadn't walked far when I heard a sound of someone falling to the ground behind me. Rounding the corner and looking back, I saw Mrs. Miller sitting on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably, repeatedly crying out, "My grandson, he's gone." When I finished my checkup and came out of the doctor's office, I saw him waiting at the door. His eyes were bloodshot and still held tears, as if he had just cried intensely. "Don't you have anything to say to me?" His voice was incredibly hoarse. But I shook my head. "There's nothing left to say between us. Let's just part ways peacefully." "Sarah, I still love you. How can you expect me to part ways peacefully? I never thought we would break up." He spoke with a mix of sobs and despair. "But the moment you married Catherine, it was already destined that we would break up. Don't tell me you married her just out of responsibility." There are many ways to take care of someone, not just marriage. Sally, I truly had no choice but to marry her. My brother is gone, and the baby will be born without a father, easily bullied by others. And Catherine is an orphan. She has no parents to support her. How can she raise a child alone? His words sounded incredibly ridiculous to me, but I couldn't laugh. Yes, it's not easy for her raising a child, but did you ever think about me? If I had actually gone through with the wedding and had a child later, what would my child and I be? If she's having a hard time, does that mean we wouldn't? David Miller, your so-called love is too cheap. I don't want it. Please, I'm begging you, let me go, okay? I gave up this child, firstly because I didn't want them to live with the stigma of being born out of wedlock, and secondly because I didn't want them to ask later why their father had two families. David Miller's eyes turned red with tears upon hearing this. Faced with the choice between his brother's widow and me, he still couldn't decide. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words on him and turned to leave. Before long, the police opened a case and began focusing on investigating the truth of the matter. Just as the police investigation was making some headway, a tall man burst into Catherine's hospital room and slapped her twice, ignoring her screams. You bitch! How dare you call the police? Did you forget how trashy you were when you were hooking up with me? And now you're reporting me for rape? You think I won't send all those videos of us to them? You won't let me have a good time, so I won't let you either. Catherine was slapped hard twice and stammered, trying to explain. He was consumed by rage and couldn't listen to anything she said. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Damn it, you think you're protected now that you're married to David Miller, huh? I'm going to tell him right now that the baby you're carrying is mine. Let's see who protects you now, you bitch. Panic flashed in Catherine's eyes, and she shook her head repeatedly, begging him to stop talking. But unexpectedly, David Miller and Mrs. Miller, who were standing outside the door, heard everything he said clearly. Mrs. Miller was furious. She rushed into the room, and before Catherine could react, she slapped her across the face, cursing, "You little hussy. Because of you, my grandson is gone. Give me back my grandson." Thinking that she had lost her true grandson because of Catherine, she was overcome with rage and faint. David Miller had originally planned to confront Catherine and the man. But seeing this scene, he rushed to call for a doctor. After a series of examinations, Mrs. Miller was diagnosed with acute stroke and would have to spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. Upon hearing this news, tears of deep regret streamed from Mrs. Miller's eyes. Meanwhile, David Miller filed for divorce from Catherine. Catherine was unwilling and stubbornly refused to agree. This time, David Miller didn't give her another chance. He secretly gathered evidence of her infidelity during their marriage and filed for divorce litigation, ensuring she left with nothing. When I heard about this, I felt a sense of melancholy but nothing more. We are all adults and must learn to be responsible for our own choices. No one is an exception.